Hamilton had to make a slight detour during one of his laps after a very close encounter with Piastri, saw him being pushed off the track and into the pit lane. Weird, but it happened. Watch the highlights. That was funny. Welcome to the Lavesh Pillay Show, your weekly F1 podcast bringing you the latest content from the fast-paced world of Formula One. I am Lavesh and I am your host. Okay, so I had a script with the entire background of the Shanghai International Circuit ready to go, but I deleted it. Why would I do that? Well, after watching FP1 and SQ1, I realized that this is going to be a super exciting race weekend, and I'm not going to have time to talk about everything else. So, first off, we're back in China at an unbelievably stunning Shanghai International Circuit for the Chinese Grand Prix weekend after 5 whole years of not being there. And some of you had a fat load to say about the Chinese Grand Prix being host to the first sprint race of the year. Well, I think it's just your hatred for unpredictability that caused that. But anyways, anyone can agree that this weekend was worth getting up at 5 a.m. for. I mean, as soon as the green lights went for teams to start the practice session, all cars were a go and spent most of their time on the track, with there being only one session for the weekend due to the sprint format. The rules have changed slightly, and teams are now allowed to make some changes to the car after the sprint race has completed, and use these changes for quali and the main race. But any changes made during FP1 is the final changes that teams have to stick with for the sprint quali and race. I don't know about you, but I find this to be a welcoming change that most teams would appreciate. This allows you to use FP1 to tune your car for the sprint races and have time after that to adjust your car for quali and the main race too. During this only practice session, a portion of grass on the circuit caught fire near turn 7. Literally caught fire. It was a bit weird of a situation as it was super cloudy and rained the day before. So, looking at the circuit, it was painted and not resurfaced. So, a colleague suggested that the grass was painted as well, which may have caused the fire. And I mean, it's not that far-fetched. The sparks from when the bottom of the car hits the curb mixed with the chemicals of the paint do sound like a fire starting kit to me. That little fire caused a red flag, but took only a few minutes to put out before the session resumed. It wasn't the only fire that engulfed the grass though. Hamilton had to make a slight detour during one of his laps after a very close encounter with Piastri, saw him being pushed off the track and into the pit lane. Weird, but it happened. Watch the highlights. That was funny. He drove straight past the garages and back onto the field, with race officials noting the incident for a potential penalty for ignoring the race director's instructions. No penalty was awarded as the move was not intentional and was done to avoid a collision. Okay, in sprint qualifying we were treated to another display of burning grass, this time at turn 5. The fire caused a yellow flag, with time just having run out for the session and most drivers already returning to the pit lane. But this was not the only element that decided to make an appearance at the session. The rain decided to make an appearance that saw the drivers having to switch to a set of intermediate tyres for the third part of qualifying. SQ1 saw both Alpines and both Williams get eliminated, as well as Tsunoda for RB, or VCOP. Nearing the end of SQ2, the rain started to fall, and teams were starting to feel the grip on their tyres fading. At the end of the session, the two Haas drivers were eliminated, altogether with Lance Stroll, the other VCOP driver Ricciardo, and George Russell. By SQ3, the rain had fully arrived as predicted. The crowd were going wild because hometown hero Zhou Guanyu was still in it and was looking great. Fun fact, Zhou is the only Chinese F1 driver to ever start a World Championship race. And that in China as well. The session saw Leclerc greet the wall and say goodbye to his front wing after catching gravel and losing control. This gives me memories of 2023 Ferrari, and with the rest of the performance for the entire weekend, yeah, I can say it's 2023 Ferrari. Verstappen struggled to keep his grip on the track, seeing him lose a bit of control and going over track limits at turn 6, resulting in one of his laps getting his times deleted. Turn 6 caused Hamilton to have one of his lap times deleted as well for track limits. Verstappen had a second lap where he went off the track at turn 16, which saw Norris do the exact same thing shortly after. This saw Norris's time being deleted, but shortly thereafter we were told that the time would be reinstated. I think that it would have indeed been a big issue if his time was deleted and Verstappen's time remained. The end of SQ3 saw Norris in pole, with Hamilton second, Alonso third, and Verstappen in fourth. Listening to an interview that Albon did before, this was a few months or years or whenever it was, he admitted that Max has the team tune his car to the max and always tries to push it further, which means that his steering is extremely sensitive and may prove to always be a challenge for the Dutch driver in wet weather. Now, the sprint race itself was quite interesting to say the least, with Hamilton and Norris starting at the front of the field. Hamilton kind of pushed Norris off the track before recovering and continuing the fight at the front of the track. During lap 9, Hamilton had a lockup which caused him to lose position at the front of the field, with Max coming up from his start at 4th to take the lead. Alonso ended up with a puncture that saw him drop back a few places in the last sector. The two Ferraris came extremely close to colliding during the last sector, and thus saw a bit of an angry exchange between the two drivers via their engineer. In all fairness, you can't expect Sainz to really follow team orders after they gave him a screw you, here's the door, goodbye. Now, a big moment that the Chinese fans loved was the finish at ninth position for hometown favourite Zhou Guanyu. Leading the race, we saw Max Verstappen take pole with Hamilton second and Perez third. Now we move over to our actual qualifying session for the main race. Logan Sargent spun out during Q1, which saw a yellow flag being deployed. After coming out second in the sprint race, Hamilton was kicked out of Q1 with the 18th slowest time. Hometown favourite Zhou had the 16th slowest time and was also eliminated. The two were joined by Magnussen, Tsunoda, and Sargent, who were also out during Q1. Q2 saw Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur holding his head after Sainz spun out and hit the barrier wall. This damaged his front wing, resulting in a yellow flag and eventually a red flag. The car had no front wing left at all and looked rather funny, but Sainz managed to get it running again and drove back to the pit lane. Fortunately for the Ferraris though, the damage was only on the front wing, which was rather quickly replaced. At the end of Q2, Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon and Gasly were out with the slowest times. Q3 saw a massive fight for the pole position from almost all the drivers pulling fantastic times. Time was up, but the drivers were finishing their push laps. The front row kept changing during this time. However, we ended up with a Red Bull 1-2 for the starting grid on Sunday. Hulkenberg and Bottas managed to make it up to 9th and 10th, with Russell starting at 8th. The Ferrari started 6th and 7th, with the McLarens just above them. The top 3 ended with Alonso, Perez and Verstappen. Moving on to an extremely exciting main race now, we started off with a massive fight between Alonso and the two Red Bulls, with Alonso eventually passing Perez and giving Max a bit of a run for his money. Unfortunately for Alonso, the Dutch driver held his own and kept his place as race leader. Red Bull pulled off 2 double stacks throughout the race with magnificent times in the pit lane on both pit stops. At lap 21, Bottas had to move his car off the road after an engine failure. This resulted in a yellow flag. There was a bit of controversy around this though, As Bottas was still busy with his car on the side of the track while drivers were racing around the corner where he was standing and no safety car or virtual safety car was deployed. After some time, a virtual safety car was eventually deployed while Bottas was walking on the side of the track to a safer place. Which again, not that safe, but that's what happens. Officials had tried to move the car but failed to do so as the car was still in gear. And because it was engine failure, they couldn't start it and actually change the gear itself. This eventually led to a physical safety car being deployed onto the track while efforts continued to try and move the car. After failing to do so, a crane had to be deployed to carry the car off the track. During this time, Red Bull did their second double take with a magnificent pit stop on Verstappen's car, lasting only 1.9 seconds and a 2-second stop for Perez. Shortly after the safety car ended and racing resumed, another incident occurred on lap 26. A lockup at the front of the field saw a collision between Stroll and Ricciardo a few places back, due to a sudden braking incident. Stroll hit directly into the back of Ricciardo, who narrowly missed going into Piastri. At lap 27, Tsunoda had damage to his right wheel after a collision with Magnussen, which saw the V-Carb driver retire from the race. Magnussen received damage to the front left of his car after the collision as well. This resulted in another safety car having to be deployed. At lap 34-35, Ricciardo retired his car as well after the incident with Stroll during lap 26. During lap 35, we saw a magnificent fight for 16th place between Stroll and Magnussen, which saw them continuously switching places. Securing his 58th Grand Prix win, Max Verstappen finished first, but this week we did not get a Red Bull 1-2. We saw Lando Norris snatching up second place, and despite all odds, he managed to get onto the podium. Perez finished third, with the two Ferraris finishing fourth and fifth. Max now ends off the week with 110 points, with second place Perez with 85 points. That's it for this week. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening to the Lavesh Pillay Show.